Want to say hi to everybody watching online with us. It's great to have you. And I'm going to say to everybody here and everybody out there, this is a great thing to share, like this stream, our YouTube channel, a lot of great things to help you each and every day. So I want to say hi to the Allens and the Badetskis, to Susan Mars and Heather. Great to have you all with us today. And this week was one of those weeks where I was just convinced of what I was going to start my sermon with, but then by the end, it totally changed. Because when you think about the topic of sin, like I started the week thinking that no one likes to talk about sin. In fact, if you're on an airplane, right, you're traveling somewhere and you want to get some sleep, you could probably start a conversation with the person next to you about sin. And then they will like totally ignore you and you'll be able to sleep. But then I thought to myself, well, no, actually we do like to talk about sin. Other people's sin. I mean, isn't that what gossip is? Now who among us says, and I want us to be real honest, when somebody comes up and says, hey, did you hear? Did you hear what happened to that guy? Right? Could be somebody in the news. Could be, right? I mean, today it's like every day there's something, right? One of the politicians, somebody said this or did that. Here's the clip. Now do you go, hey, no, I don't want to hear it. I'm going to keep it positive. Who does that? No, we go like, hey, turn it up. I want to hear that. And we join in and we're like, I can't believe he said that. I can't believe she did that. I can't believe. And we go on and on and on. And there's that vicious cycle again. And we get caught right up in it. Somebody fails. It could be someone that we know. And we're like, wow, what happened? And we want details, don't we? And the more details, the better. And we'll even ask, they say, well, how did that happen? You know, as if we're concerned. Because most of the time we're like, man, I want to feel better about myself because I didn't do that. But what about if it was somebody coming to you and saying, hey, we got to sit down. We got to talk. You know what they mean when they say that, don't you? Right? Your mom or your dad. Like, think about when you were a kid and they said, hey, we got to talk. It's like, uh-oh. They're not going to talk to me about giving me a new car. I did something, especially if you know you did something wrong. At work or at school, whatever it is, when the principal calls you into his office, it's never positive. It's not something that people look forward to because you're going to kind of have to face the music. You're going to have to come face to face with the reality. And have you ever noticed that when that discussion goes down, you don't want details? Hey, can we keep all these boxes, can we keep them taped shut? Because I don't want you opening them, all of them, and going through them, you know, object after object, issue after issue, event after event. No. And so when we look at this vicious cycle that God wants us to sort of remove ourselves from and break, one of the first things, and we talked about it last week, that we realized that what Jesus did was for everybody. And here's the reason that we're going to talk about today is that we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Now, I'd be willing to bet you'd be okay with a discussion about that text, wouldn't you? In a generic way. Oh, yeah, sure, I'm a sinner. I need Jesus. Well, okay, so let's talk about some of your sins. Let's talk, especially the ones that are really causing problems in your relationships with people, that are really kind of offensive to God, and you don't really want to talk about. See, that it's great generically, but when we start getting into details, into specifics, we get uncomfortable, don't we? Because I think for a lot of us, right, sin is what other people do. It's something that they have a problem with, and it's those people. It's not us. And if we're going to deal with sin in our lives, it's very often the motivation is because it's making me look bad. You know what I mean? Somebody found out something or something happened, and oh man, now what are they going to think? When was the last time that you looked at something sinful that you did, right? So maybe you lost it with your friends or with your kids or with your wife or husband, right? Something happened, you blew up, and you just know, you're like, whoa, that was bad. When's the last time you said, you know what, that's bad because it really offended my Father, my God in heaven? That it really did a number on my relationship with him. When's the last time we said that? It's like, no, I got caught, I look bad, I feel bad, and I just want someone to make me feel better. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because I think that's part of the healing process and what God does. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. But what if that's the only motivation? then I think what happens is we kind of put God aside, don't we? And it's about the rules. It's about how good we are, how bad the other people are. Because I think this relational thing is so incredibly important. Again, in a little bit, we're gonna pray the Lord's Prayer. And where does that start? What's the second word in that prayer? I know there's not many of you, but come on, let me hear you. Father, our Father. Why would Jesus, of all the words, of all the images for us to start a prayer, right? A model for prayer, he says, Dad, Father, relational. It's so true. And I know for my own life, and you could probably remember in your own life that you probably can't remember the times when mom or dad yelled at you and got angry with you and they sent you to your room. But what you probably remember is when they looked at you with disappointment. I don't know if I've told this story before, but my grandparents were like ninjas with this. Like, I don't remember them really losing it. I don't remember them yelling at me or getting angry. I just remember the look. They would just look at you. You know the look I'm talking about. I can't believe you just did that. And I shared this story earlier, and I may have said this before, or shared this, but we were with my grandparents, and my brother and I started to mock Lawrence Welk relentlessly. I mean, it was bad because they forced us to watch it, right? So we figured we're in our, but they loved that show, and so it was totally offensive to them, and by our mockery, we were just. It wasn't even that we were hurting Lawrence Welk's feelings because he didn't care, he didn't know. But my grandparents, it was like we were mocking them. And I'll go to the grave remembering the look on my grandparents' face and how I felt. I was like, oh my goodness. I looked at my brother and I was like, it would be better if they were to start hitting us. I mean, I'll be honest with you. They should have taken out like a big stick and just started whacking us. And that would have felt a whole lot better. I'd have been like, yes, I'll take more of those because I can't deal with this, what I've done to this relationship. Because they love me. And then what did I do with that love? I acted that way, and I insulted them, and I mocked them, and I showed them disrespect. See, I think that's what's happening in Psalm 51 with David. Now, my hope today is that we look at this passage and it becomes not just, that was the sermon text for today, right? And, pastor had to preach on it. But I want it to become like kind of a pattern for how you just do life every day, how you see yourself, how you see God, and how you deal with the issues in your life. Because it's so incredibly powerful. Look at how David pours out his heart. And by the way, if you look at David's backstory, he is not some kind of plastic saint who hasn't had issues. We know this, right? He saw, as the king, he sees a woman bathing, he sends for her, he sleeps with her, he impregnates her. It sounds like a Jerry Springer show, don't it? But it gets worse. Because learning that he's impregnated her, he tries to cover it up by ordering that her husband be sent to the front lines. But he's a man of integrity, and he's not gonna, sleep with his wife. He's not gonna go home and so you'll see that it's his baby. No, he's going back to the front lines, and so David says, hey, I got to cover this up, and has him in the worst place where he's sure to die. So it's a well-planned out murder on top of adultery. And then he throws lying. And I think even if you look at the fact that he was the king, talk about his position given to him by God, chosen by God, so good. God had been so good to him. And what does he do? He does all this evil things. And he's got nowhere to run. He's got nowhere to hide. He cannot make this sound good. There's no way to rationalize it or explain it away. God's got him dead to rights. And so he says, have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love. See, the only way you could say that is if you've known that God's love is that way. It doesn't give up. It's just constant. It's always going to be there. And that's how David wants him to deal with him. Not on a legal standpoint, right? It's not like he's going to have a defense and try to wiggle out of it. That train left a long time ago. And for us, it's the same thing, isn't it? We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. God knows who we are. He knows what we are and what we've done, right? From birth, he knows. But how does he deal with us? According to his mercy. Have mercy on me. According to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. See, and that's what God does. See, other human beings, and I think almost every other human being that we'll deal with will make us pay for it, correct? When we do something bad, they will remind us of it constantly. They will only show love if, again, we've maybe met some requirements. God says, no. I simply love you, and you're all that you did, done. Murder, adultery, you name it, all gone. Sins forgiven. So he says, God, what I need you to do in verse 2 is wash me from my iniquity. Cleanse me from my sin. The law for a Jewish person at this time, for what he did, the penalty, what do you guess the penalty was? It was death. It wasn't like now we'd be like, oh man, he's a hot mess, and maybe he might, right, he'll have to get divorced, and there's going to be some bad things that'll happen. But no, among God's people at that time, if he's dealt with according to what he deserves, he will literally die, physically die. So he's got no other way out. He has to plead God's mercy. He needs God to clean him, to wash him. This sin needs to be taken away, and only God can do it, because he knows one thing in verse 3, that his transgressions and his sin is always before him. But to me, the incredible verses that for me are life-changing is how he sees it. Because he hasn't just offended and done evil things against Uriah, right? Bathsheba, all those people in that, right? The whole nation of Israel in my book, right? He has offended them, and he has done horrible things to all of them. But he says, when all is said and done against you, Lord, you only have I sinned. That's the worst of it. Is that this father who loves him, this one who chose him, even when he was a boy, to rule the people of God. He says, Lord, I have done a number on that I have destroyed with my own hands what you have built and what you have given. I have just rejected you in a lot of ways. I've done evil in your sight, he says. You are justified in your words, blameless in your judgment. In fact, he goes, this even runs deeper. I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin my mother conceived me. You delight in truth in my inner being, and you teach me wisdom in the secret place. And what has David been doing? He's been trying to deceive. This is so amazing. Like he's not trying to sugarcoat it. See, what we see today in our own lives, and we see it in the world around us, is everyone else has the problem. Everyone else is wrong. Everyone else is doing this and doing that. See, God says, look at yourself. He wants me to look at me. Didn't Jesus say something about removing the speck from our own, the log from our own eye before we remove the little teeny tiny speck from our brother's eye? Remember that? Right? We got these giant logs, and we're worried about a little speck in someone else's. Purge me with hyssop, right? I'll be clean. Wash me, Lord. I'm going to be whiter than snow. See, the point I want us to see is not that we're going to wallow in our badness, right? And say, woe is me and how bad I am. But we want to take that seriously, just like we would if we had a cancer diagnosis, when we got to go to the doctor, and only he can cut that out, and only he can bring that healing. God's the only one who can do this for David and for us. He goes, I want to hear joy. I want to hear gladness, that the bones that you have broken rejoice. Now, can you imagine that based on what he did? How hard it must have been for him to even think that God could do that. And what I want you to see, and that I'm trying to grasp myself, is that is how amazing God is. That you could even doing the worst possible thing that humans could even, dredge up, that God would be willing to give you joy at the end of the day. Right? The worst we could get is, well, I won't kill you. Right? That's how I would be playing it. Like, Lord, okay, you didn't annihilate me. I'm going to go live in a mud puddle over here, and we're good. It's like, no. I never wanted you in the mud. I never wanted you to do that, right? And think about that. If I think that God is that small, that all he would do is just not disintegrate me with his death ray, right? To think that that's how he is. He says, no. He's got a bigger view of God. That there could be joy, there could be gladness, that these bones could rejoice. He says, hide your face from my sins, blot out my iniquities. That's what Jesus did. And his prayer is a prayer that I pray that we all pray, that God would create in us a clean heart, that he would renew a right spirit within us. That he would not cast us away from his presence, but take his Holy Spirit from us. See, that's what Jesus did. Died for us, rose for us to give us a clean heart, a right spirit, right? His Holy Spirit accomplishes that because that was the free gift that he gave to us that we have each and every day. And he restores the joy of our salvation. He upholds us with his willing spirit. It's a new cycle. It's a forgiveness cycle that he wants us to be on. We look at our sin, we see how Jesus has totally paid the price, and we are his now. We are loved. We even get heaven. Could you imagine that? For who we are. But the cycle continues, doesn't it? It's not just, yeah, awesome, I'm free, I'm forgiven. No, what does it say in verse 13? He goes, then, here's why. Lord, I want you to heal me. I want all this to happen. I want to be restored, not just so that I can go, dodged one, cool. But that now, instead of judging and condemning and just railing against other people, that I might teach transgressors your ways. Notice he doesn't say, I'm going to go into the temple and find the holiest dudes, and we're just going to talk about how evil everybody else is. No, he goes, there's other people who have been loved by God and forgiven by God, and they want nothing to do with him. And they're going down the wrong path. I want to teach them your ways, Lord. And the only way I can do that is if I know what they are, if I experience your love and experience your forgiveness. That's what it means to have a new heart, by the way, a clean heart. You see things for how they are. And we go back to the goal, right, which is restoration. Because if God sought to restore me and restored me, then don't you think he wants me to be about the business of restoring others? And not rubbing their nose in it? Sinners, he say, will return to you. I'll teach them, and sinners will return. What an awesome thing. So he says, deliver me from blood guiltiness, oh God. Oh God. Again, I can't have this hanging over my head. You're the God of my salvation. My tongue is going to sing aloud of your righteousness. This is what my life is going to be about, Lord, and I need you to just open my lips. I'll declare your praise. He says in verse 16, he says, for you will not delight in sacrifice, or I'd bring it. I would give it. You're not pleased with the burnt offering. It says, here's what God treasures, right? A broken spirit. That's the sacrifice of God. A broken and contrite heart, he says, you will not despise. So do you see how different that cycle is from the vicious cycle? The vicious cycle is I fail and somebody kicks me while I'm down. And then a whole group gathers and kicks me while I'm down. And then posts that on Instagram. Right? That's the vicious cycle, correct? And it gets 1 million hits. But the forgiveness cycle is me looking at me, looking at what God has done for me, seeing the others who have fallen into ditches as well, and me going to them and gathering a group not to kick them when they're down, but to help to pull them out of that ditch to safety, to God's in God's care, so that they might know who He is, so that they might know His truth, so that we could all just have conversations that glorify Him, and a life that longs to see people set free and healed from all the things that we're all struggling with. So I pray that this is our rhythm, right? I pray that this is now our cycle, to see people change, to see their hearts healed.